Hey, welcome to the Growth Whisperers, where everything that we talk about is building enduring great companies, companies that you're proud of that last for a long, long time. As always, today I'm joined by my co-host, Kevin Lawrence. My name's Brad Giles. How are you doing today, Kevin?
Brad, I'm doing great. It's wonderful, beautiful sunny day today. Saw one of the most beautiful sunrises ever from my place here. I can see over there to my left, there's mountain peaks and this bright red, burning red sunrise this morning. It was awesome because another friend of mine lives down closer to the beach, and we talk on a regular basis. He sent me a picture of the sunrise. He was down on the beach, and I sent him one back from up here, and they were insane. I'm not a photographer, but it was so damn good that I had to send a picture to my kids and this buddy of mine down the street because he lives in the area. Anyways, yeah, it's awesome. Beautiful day, and and it feels like it's like June, like the year has just flown by. It seems to have been so busy last couple of weeks, but it's
we've got a saying here.
We've got
a saying here. It's better to be looking at it than looking for it in relation to being too busy. We'd rather be a bit too busy than be have no work at all. So count one's blessings, I guess, is my reaction to that to a degree.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what do we got on today?
Yeah, well, I thought we would, I took this amazing course on basket weaving. So I thought we would dig into there's this new basket weaving technique. It's quite fascinating. And we got a 14-hour video and a 7-hour talk that we were going to cover off on today's show. So I was thinking, Kevin and Brad's basket weaving adventure. And that's what I was thinking today. How about you? Does that sound good?
Oh no, I'll let you run with that. You keep going, and we'll see where you go with that, because that's I know nothing about basket weaving at all.
Well, neither do I. I don't know anything about baskets or weaving or basket weaving. No, so today we're talking about one of our favorite topics, and it's about getting the right people on the bus.
Yeah.
We love that metaphor. Jim Collins kind of coined that phrase, but it's how do you, as you're building a company, get the right people on, and then ideally get them behaving in the right ways, which is easier when you get the right people. And then what do you do when it doesn't work? And so we've got lots of experience. And it was interesting. I was talking with a CEO of a company this week, kind of a friend of a friend, and he was calling with a challenge he had. And he was talking about his highest performing people and his lowest performing people, and he wanted some help with coaching these people. And our team does that stuff, and and we can do that. And I said to him, but you need to know those bottom performers, the ROI you're going to get is probably about 3.2 cents per $1,000 spent. And normally it was a selection problem, not a management problem, not a coaching problem, not anything else problem. You probably just chose the wrong people, and you're probably going to see the greatest, because he was asking about how do I get the ROI on coaching. I said, your biggest ROI is probably going to come from your top 20% and them getting better.
Yeah.
And I said, for him though, he wants his ROI is not having to deal with the bottom 20. So point of it being is that in that situation, we'll help them. We'll put a program together to help all of those people. But I wanted to set the expectations right. And I said to him, at some point, we should have a conversation about your selection process versus your training, development, and coaching. So, and that's kind of what we're digging into today. So let's say you had 20 great leaders and it ain't really working the way you want. And you're like, this other CEO has. How do you get the right people on and get them doing the right things? And then, how do you deal with the ones that don't? So that's what we're going to dig into. Really controversial for some people, because some people like to have this environment where everyone is welcome and everyone's okay. And some people are cutthroat, which we're not. We want to find that happy medium where you can build a great team, but you usually have to make a few hard decisions. Anyways, we're both very passionate. So Brad, I'd love to kind of get your thoughts up front on what is it what does it really mean to get the right people on the bus in your mind?
Well, I guess we begin by saying that this is for an existing company. Okay, so this is, you've had an epiphany, or you've had a thought that, you know what, I want to make this business better. I want to build a great business or a great enduring business, or you've thought to yourself, I want to improve. Okay, so you don't go straight to the strategy. You don't go straight to the execution. You don't go to some of these other areas necessarily, because all of those things um, will be undermined, or will have a much lower chance of success if you don't have the right people. So if you've got a leadership team, let's say of 7 people, and 3 of those people are toxic, or they're not effective, or they're just never going to succeed in your environment at your revenue level, well, you've got to get rid of them, or you've got to make substantial changes to ensure that you've got the right people who can do that, and only then can you move forward. So for me, it's something that I see so often, and why I'm pretty passionate about today's episode, because I start working with an organization, a business, and they've been running. I mean, one of the businesses I think of, they've been running for 100 years, but many of them are, well established businesses, and they want to make a good and positive change. And so what happens is I meet with the existing leadership team, and they're probably okay or good. And sometimes by the time we get a year through, there's been a few people who've left the business, or who aren't in the leadership team anymore. And that's maybe because I'm really pushing for excellence through the work that we're doing. And they really just want a job. They're passionate about fishing, or
Yep.
they're passionate about something else. But we're really focusing on building a great business. So then you've got other people who they can go for years and years and years and never take action on people. So we can never really get to the good and meaty stuff that we want to get to building a really strong strategy, or building some of these other great things, because
Yeah.
we've got these lagging legacy problems of people in the leadership team who aren't right.
And it's so common, Brad, because we look at founders of companies, they're usually so loyal to those that have helped them to thrive. And it's in our DNA to be, to appreciate and want to give people opportunities and believe in people. And we see it all the time. And that's why, like you, when we go into companies, normally, I got one, many that have been around, multi-generational businesses. But what happens over time, there was one that was second generation, and the leadership team was basically all the wrong people.
Yeah.
They were long-term people. They were nice people. So it's kind of, in many ways, if we would take a professional sport team, whatever your sport is, it could be cricket or rugby or football or baseball. You take a professional sport team, and if you didn't change the players for a decade, there's no way you're going to win. But yet in business, we think we can use that strategy, and it doesn't work. And so we often go in, and it's not the people's fault. Maybe there hasn't been clear goals. Maybe the culture hasn't been clear. But it's really hard to do amazing things when people aren't in the right role. Or sometimes they don't have the right resources, or they don't have the right direction. So there's all these variables that go into performance. And when we start working with companies, it's like, okay, well, let's isolate the variables and then try and help people to get into those right roles and perform. Or maybe they need to go somewhere else. So the best metaphor really I look at is a sports team. And it's where you earn your position to play on the field, whatever the sport is, or the court.
Yeah.
And you earn every game. And if you have a bad game, you'll have a chat with the coach, and the coach will help you to get it together for the next game. And if you have a few bad games, or even if you have a few bad plays, you get put on the bench and somebody else goes in. And those sport teams, it's about winning on a game by game basis. sometimes in business we look a lot long term and we miss kind of the daily score or the weekly score. So and if I flip it around from the person perspective, the human perspective, it's about enabling people to win and feel good about their work.
Yeah.
Because when we're on the right team and we're doing great work, we feel awesome. And when we don't and we flounder, we don't. But I think the root of it all is it comes down to the founder and the senior leaders to be able to make these decisions. One, to give the tough feedback, or two, to make the tough calls. And most of them have a hard time doing it, unless they're a sociopath or a psychopath, which that's a whole other different thing. The
Yeah.
people we work with aren't that. They
Yeah.
really, truly care. And this is a real hard thing to do. That's why most companies don't scale,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they don't have the right people in the right seats.
And it's a tough decision. I mean, before we get into some of the points that we've got, the kind of the key points to work on here, I had a client that I still work with today. I reckon it would have been 4 or 5 years we had a toxic member on the team. Now, some may look at that as a failure, but the leader, the leader said, we've got to work through it. This person has strong strategic relationships with both our suppliers and our customers that we can't break. Like it will cost us so much more, and it will have, catastrophic damage to the business. And you know me, right? I was very much like, so when are we going to take action? Like this is, and every single time I'd say, so tell me, what's your number one concern? And he'd say, well, it's this person. It's, I'll call him Bob for want of a better name. It's Bob, Bob, he's done this and he's done that, and no one's talking to him, or this, or this, or this. And, eventually it got unbearable. And for me, only at that point, we brought in a new person who is outstanding. And now we've got some real strategic traction. But until we got that leadership team right, and we made some really good wins, don't get me wrong, in those first few years, but it just takes a long time sometimes. And it requires such courage to get over that.
It does. And what's interesting, we have another company that we worked with that I just had the conversation this morning with a CEO. And we had someone that we brought on 2 years ago in a critical role, directly reporting to the CEO. And we were just saying today, as we were reviewing the CEO's goals for the future, and when we went and did a reflection on the past year, they said, I should have made the decision sooner. And what the CEO said is, there's certain things with people on my team that I know are deal breakers. This executive broke the deal, did something that was basically not recoverable. And here's the thing that we talked about. I'm not going to disclose names. It was funny as hell. And what they said is, and I know it was a deal breaker because I didn't want to tell anyone what they did. In many ways, it was so freaking bad that they didn't want to admit it to someone, because they would look at the CEO like they were an idiot. Yep. Like, how is that person still work for you? And so they said, because they kind of wanted to keep quiet what that executive had done.
Yeah.
And it wasn't an illegal thing, but it was not consistent with their values, because they wanted to hide it, which meant they felt that this was, they felt really crappy about it. It's like, that should be my indication. I should probably pull the pin right now. And they could have saved 6 or 9 months. And now this person's replacement is outstanding. In the few months the replacement has been there, you can already see the business moving ahead. It's a different type of leadership, a different type of progress. But the point is, the CEO knew, but they're human, and they gave the person too many chances, and it cost stress to them, and it really slowed the progress of the business down. The business is solid; it'll keep going. So I think that's something that's a glitch for a lot of us. So the root of this, the whole episode is, how to navigate your own emotional issues when it comes to people on your team, because that's the biggest thing. We know We can give you better tools and processes, but at the end of the day, it takes a lot of emotional fortitude and resilience to make
Yeah.
these tough calls. And you got to practice it. Like, man, I've been involved of giving hundreds of people that we have offboarded from company, hundreds. And we got a tight process. Make sure they have clear feedback. Make sure they have clear feedback. No, make sure they have clear feedback and clear goals. Measure them against the goals. Give them more feedback. Give them another chance. And at a certain point, it's like they have chosen or they aren't capable of keeping their job.
Yeah.
But we want to make sure we treat them respectfully and give them chances. Now, if they're ripping off the company or doing something, illegal or immoral, then we don't give chances, and you might even make an example of them. So let's dig into kind of the key things that we think make a difference when you're looking at this. And
So
the main
first,
thing, yeah, go ahead, Brad.
Okay, so first of all, and really the most important is you've got to commit. You've got to say, we've got an okay business, but we want an amazing business. We want we want a great business, and we're prepared to do the difficult things to get there. Because, the great irony of it is that when you don't have the right people on the bus, the people who aren't the right people frustrate the hell out of the leader.
Oh.
Every single meeting that I have, I ask the person I'm working with, so tell me, what's your number one concern today, right? And that just brings to the surface so many challenges. And I write it down and I get to look back and I said, you know what? Like, that's the 17th time that you've told me that Bob's annoying you.
I say that if Bob's name or any executive's name keeps coming up in our coaching meetings,
yeah,
that is a career limiting issue. It's bad for Bob if we end up having to keep talking about Bob.
But everybody knows about it. Everybody in the business knows about it. And here's the thing, I spoke about this extensively in my book, Made to Thrive, right? Here's the thing, that all of the A players look at you as the leader and they say, why isn't he taking or she taking action?
Yeah.
Why does this person, I'm an A player, I'm performing at this level. I thought that my boss was an A player, but they're not taking action. That doesn't make sense.
And then they start to go, am I crazy? Or is the leader or the CEO weak, mediocre, doesn't care about the company? And as I shared with another CEO recently that was having to make a tough call, I said, well, when you're in the meeting debating about what to do, don't think about the one person that's a problem. Don't have your empathy go towards them. Have your empathy towards the other 1,400 people in your organization who may be impacted because of that person. Now, obviously, because this person's very empathetic. You want to be empathetic to everyone, but you really got to think about protecting the company overall, not just one human. And that sometimes helps. It's harder. So, yeah. I think it's the first thing, as you were starting to talk about, is to commit. You're going to have a great team and that's not for everyone. I kind of remember we talked about this. What? And if you only want a good company, then if we're playing Monopoly, don't pass go. Go straight to jail and don't collect your $200. Like, you don't need to listen. You don't need to listen to the rest of this. Some people are okay with okay companies.
Yeah,
we're passionate about people that want to be great and want to do great things. It's like they want to be an A student, right? And that's what we're about here today. But if you want to just be okay, which normally means you'll have more headaches, less growth, and less profit, and less long-term viability. And Brad, we were kind of laughing there, but a lot of people aren't up for it. A lot of people are happy to do a sport at a recreational level. They don't want to go pro. Right? And that's okay. But in this realm where we're really speaking to those that want to go pro. So it's like either commit that you're going to have a great company or not. Like, I had one client that worked with for a couple of years and we made some good progress, but really I was wanting to go pro with his business and he didn't want to. I don't like mediocrity. I don't do well with mediocrity. I said to him, hey, you should probably get somebody else.
Yeah.
You're kind of happy with mediocre, and I don't feel good about it.
No,
So that
not
is
do I.
the first thing, is to make sure you're, really, really committed to having an amazing team and willing to do the hard work and deal with the tough situations to get there.
And so then we move on to defining what the right people look like to you. So
Hmm.
the overall objective is this is really the beginning of everything in the journey. You've got to have the right people on the bus. And you've got to commit to it, as what we said is first. But then we're saying we've got to understand and communicate, define what the right people look like to you, what the culture means in your team, what the productivity expectations mean in your team. So that doesn't mean that you need to have the most full and comprehensive set of KPIs. You don't have to have your culture absolutely perfect. But you know what? Many times you can get 80% of the gains from 20% of the work
Yes.
when it comes to culture and when it comes to KPIs. And I use that because that's really how we define the performance of individuals. And that's how we know if we've got the right people looking, are they productive and do they align with our cultural expectations or our
Yeah.
core values? So communicate that to people. Make sure that people know what it is. And in my experience, the more that you communicate that, the more that you as a leader begin to talk about, well, this is what our core value of respect means, or whatever it might
Hmm.
be, and tell stories about that, the more that other people in the business will look at the people who aren't the right people on your bus, and the gap will widen, and then the more pressure will be applied on you to take action on those people, because everyone else can see that these people are like an anchor that is stopping us from moving forward.
Right. It's like, you see those pictures in Greece of the buildings in Greece that are pure white with the blue roofs. Well,
Yeah.
because the white is so pure white, it's very easy to tell a building that hasn't been well maintained, because it ain't white. It'll be gray and chipped and dirty looking.
Yeah.
And so that's the same thing with a culture. Once you paint it clearer, it's obvious. I'll give you a tale of two companies. So early Monday morning, we have a company that we do some engagement surveys and understanding what's happening in the business. So we're reviewing the results, and I said to one of the key leaders that we're going through it, was like, obviously your culture is weak as hell. And he goes, well, how do you know? Well, because when we ask them to describe the culture, we do a word cloud. It's a blend of words all the same size. There's no common language or phraseology. And when you have a strong culture, there's common language that we use. I've got a annual planning session with one of my awesome clients tomorrow, and I'm reviewing their surveys. Their word clouds are distinct. There's a few words that define their culture that stick out, and they take it another level. They say, hey, give an example of someone that lives our value of true grit. And they start to collect stories like crazy. True grit shows up everywhere because that's one of their core values. But even asking for examples and getting people in the habit of sharing those, people know what it takes. And even in that company, they also know if you don't have quite a bit of true grit, you shouldn't be in that company. If you don't have a lot of energy and a lot of resilience and a lot of passion, it's not the place for you.
But people won't know unless you communicate. And
Correct.
in my book, again, Made to Thrive, I spoke about the 5 roles of a CEO, and the second role is ambassador. And a key part of that is communicating on a regular basis things like the core value stories, communicating the priorities of the company. So you've got to, and this is not that difficult once you get it into a system or a rhythm. If you're able to begin the process by saying, well, we know what it looks what our values are at a really simple level, and then you begin to talk about it, That's the ambassadorial role of a CEO. So let's move on to
Yep.
number 3 then. Give feedback and begin to take action when people are breaching the core values or aren't productive. Because that's it's actually pretty
Yeah.
easy to manage people if you have the courage and the fortitude or the intestinal fortitude. And that is, are they aligning or are they breaching our core values, and are they productive in their role? And that's about as simple as we can make it. And if they're not, are you taking action on it? So
Yep.
in this case, giving feedback, giving them second chances, third chances, and beginning the process of what we would call, what is it when, I've just
Performance
lost the,
improvement plans.
yes, that's it. Performance improvement
Yes.
plans.
Yeah, giving
So
them a chance. And this
beginning
is
that
where a lot of,
formality.
yeah, that's where many managers fail. When they don't see what they want, they don't say anything.
Yeah.
That's why HR departments have to force performance reviews. And it's not something that's natural for a lot of people. It should be for a manager. The good ones do it.
Yeah.
But the best managers often give feedback. Hey, this was awesome. Hey, like the best leaders give feedback on an hourly basis. This was great, more please. Or hey, this wasn't quite what I was thinking. Here's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And helping people to figure out what they need to do to win. So one of the things that we are passionate about is making sure that these people who aren't meeting expectations, that they know, and
Yeah.
then they're given a chance. And ideally, it's give them a feedback and then clarify their goals. So like right now, we're doing a project for a company. We're doing a bunch of 360s, and so my team has gone in there and done the survey and the interviews to get real tangible insight. They're going to sit down and debrief it with their boss, and then the person's going to pick some goals to improve their behaviors and performance in sync with their boss.
Yeah.
A lot of people do 360s and say, hey, good, on your way, here's your feedback, good luck. Well, that's a waste of time. So 360 is a mechanism to gather feedback from lots of places, but even for a manager, the feedback should go into goals.
Yeah.
So then you can track progress. And it's not rocket science, but many people are not good at it. And the worst are usually CEOs. How many
But
executives go ahead, Brad?
you don't need to be the bad guy. I remember, so I've, over my career, I've started 6 companies. Some have gone quite well, some have not really taken off as much. But in my role as a leader, the gold standard that I aimed for was the person would self-select because we stuck to the system. They would say, look, I'm not going to make it here. I'm going to go and get another job elsewhere.
Right.
And we wouldn't have to fire them. So that's the kind of the gold standard, because again, we performance managed, we were very clear in our expectations. And that begins with, hey, Bob, you know what? I really want you to succeed. Like, I think that you have a great chance of succeeding, and I want you to succeed here. Okay. Everyone else sells an average of 75 units. The minimum expectation is 70, and you're currently selling 40. Okay. I really want you to succeed here. And that means at the very least, you've got to start selling more than 70.
Yeah. And let's figure out how to get you there. And then you
yes,
collaborate with them to figure out a plan and coach and manage and do your job to help the person win. But if they can't get over 40, it's probably not the right thing for them.
but the absolute basis of that is saying, I want you to succeed here, which is genuine. You do. But you've got to communicate that. And that comes back to really the previous point as well. But so you've communicated it, and now you're taking action, like put people on these performance plans, get people out. If you could exit all of your top people within 90 days, sorry, your toxic people, not your top people.
Yeah, please don't do that.
No, if you could exit, that'd be something great to aim for. It may be too hard, okay, but it's just about the action. And then I remember one person used to say to me, "Look, I can't get rid of people if there's nobody going to come in the front door." And that's a whole different conversation, like if we can't
That's a
recruit for
lie.
the roles. Yeah,
That's a
I
lie.
agree. But that was the excuse that they
You
told
can let go of
themselves.
almost anyone on the team, especially if they're toxic, and the team will rally around and fill almost every gap. It's
Yep,
shocking. Letting people
totally
go is not
agree.
near as risky. Now, you don't want to overburden your business. Don't go and fire someone and say, Kevin said, you know, you need to have a plan and be prepared. But so the main mechanism that we use, we've talked about before, is the talent review and top grading. And the best thing you can do is every quarter, if not every 6 months. And you go with your leaders and you go through their top people and you go through a process of defining who's who in the zoo, who's really good, what are the issues, and going through and figuring, are they an A player? If so, why? What do we do to help them? If they're a B player, how do we help them improve their performance? If they don't fit the culture, how do we make sure they know and give them a chance or a tool or an opportunity to fit the culture? And if you get this regular rhythm going, quarter after quarter after quarter, you end up with more of the right people on the bus because you end up addressing the things that aren't good as well as the good. Like, don't forget, your best ROI is on your A players and
Yeah.
helping them to continue to thrive or be better. You just got to make sure the toxic ones don't get in the way. So far we've got, the first thing is to really be committed to having an amazing team, right? You want a mediocre team or amazing. And it's not a simple yes. You have to be willing to do the work to earn an amazing team. Define what the right people look like in your culture, both in terms of how they fit the culture and knowing what performance looks like. And then three, when people aren't matching expectation, make sure there's a professional, respectful, and helpful way to give them feedback so that they can get on track. Or it's so darn obvious that they can't, that they can self-select. That is optimal. It's best for them and us, although sometimes they won't. But we've done the right things. So the next one, number four, is when you're bringing on new people, take it very seriously. And what I explain to people, it's like you're hiring someone that is going to come and live in your house with you and your family.
Mm.
And if they're going to be with your kids when you're not home, or with your spouse when you're not there, or in your house when none of you are there, you're probably going to scrutinize that person a little bit more than we do with our typical hires. You're going to dig in a bit more. Like, every person you hire is serious, especially when they're in management or leadership. So, screen people exceptionally well. And again, we're fans of the methodology of top grading. We're actually doing a course with the top grading team up here in a few weeks. And and I've shared before on the show, my clients have no option but to use that methodology,
Yeah.
period, for all their key hires, because I'm just sick of the wrong people that they don't scrutinize enough. They meet a person and they're persuasive, or they have a great resume, and then they put them in a place where they come into the company and now they become a headache. And sometimes they're awesome people and they quit good jobs, but we put them in a place where they could never ever win. So again, top grading is our main tool, but you got to be committed. And people have every story in the book of why you don't need to. Oh, we don't have the time. Oh, we don't have enough of the right candidates. Whatever. Like, it's all story.
Yeah.
But to imagine they're going to live with you and your family for a decade, you might take a different approach.
And so for me, a huge fan as well of the top grading method for hiring. But at an absolute minimum, the simple recommendation for listeners that I would say is, you want to have a 10-minute telephone interview. You want to have a 1 to 2 hour first interview, and you want to have a 1 to 2 hour second interview at an absolute minimum. Now we
Yeah.
can talk about the types of roles, and is it a frontline person? Is it an executive, and so forth. But just in terms of general hiring, really, really simple. you know, maybe what you're doing at the moment is saying, I got a resume. The person is qualified to do the role. Let's get them in. We speak to them for half an hour. We get the deal lust. In other words, we are lusting
Of course.
after the completion of the process so we can get back to do the more important things, because we don't believe that hiring is important, which never works. And then we hire the person. So yeah, 10 minutes, 1 to 2 hours, 1 to 2 hours. And if you've got a number, say 5 or 6 candidates, suddenly you're becoming concerned that it's going to take too long. But if you're committed to the process, you've got to get the right people on the bus.
And you spend the time up front, or you spend it later on. Because you ever worked with managing an underperformer? That takes a boatload of time. So yeah, and similar to you, Brad, and we are in talking, it's basically a few minutes to see if you want to interview them, 30-minute screening, and somewhere between 1 and 4 hour deep interview. Cumulatively similar time to what you're talking about. And the key, though, to start with is to know in that role what great looks like. And I had a conversation with Chris Marceau, who's the president of Top Grading. We were talking about this, and I came up with this metaphor. He loved it, and in hindsight, I thought it actually is very helpful. When most people define what they're looking for in a role, it's like a child with crayons drawing a picture of a building.
Yeah.
And they've kind of sketched the building. And when you go to hire, it'd be equivalent to handing that to someone and say, okay, please go build me this building. Instead, with the job scorecard they talk about, it's getting an architect to do a sketch of the building, or maybe even drawings. Well, you can take the child's sketch or the architect's drawing and then give that to a builder. You're going to get very different results with the same builder. And a lot of times we fail in hiring because we don't even know what we're looking for. Right?
Yeah.
We're working off a child's sketch. Never mind the interview process itself. It's to be so damn clear of what that person looks like, what competencies do they need, what results do they need to produce.
So there's a massive over reliance in the hiring process on experience and qualifications. So what I try to encourage people to do is to say, you know how you see redacted government documents, right? Where they black out the things that people aren't allowed to see. Well, what if we blacked out all of the experience and qualifications? What are you left with? What if we redacted the skills, the experience and the qualifications? What are we left with? Because that's what we're really trying to hire to. So sure. So
I love that.
Yeah. So if we're hiring a doctor, you need to have a doctor's degree. You need to be qualified as a doctor. But we've got to look beyond that. It's everything else that causes the pain day to day. So think about.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea, Brad. And the point of it is to take it very seriously.
Yeah.
And to have a scientific approach to hiring, because way too many people rely on their gut feel and thinking they're good at it. And not only is their gut persuaded by persuasive people, but they're working off the child's cartoon drawing of a building, and they wonder why they continually make mistakes. So find and screen people amazingly well, and spare them the pain of coming in and it being the wrong fit for them too. So the next one is, once you believe you found an awesome person, help them to really understand through your eyes what success looks like in this role in the first 90 days, and then set them up with everything that they need to win. And I cannot tell you how many amazing executives come into companies I've worked with, and I have a talk with them every time I have a chance to. But many of them blow themselves up in the first 90 days. And that's our fault, because we didn't provide guidance. And, there's two things that I have seen. One of my team just gave a great recommendation for onboarding, which is, one, asking them what they think they need to be successful in the first 90 days, and almost giving them a questionnaire about what do they need from the onboarding so they could win. That was a simple, brilliant tool. The second thing, outside of and I know you have lots of expertise around onboarding, Brad. The second thing is to tell them in the first 90 days, we don't expect them to move mountains.
Yeah.
Most people come in and try way too hard, do way too much, and blow themselves up because they don't learn to understand the business. I actually tell them, we don't want you to make any major decisions. Any decision you'll make with the person you report to, and if it's an executive, with the CEO, you need to learn the business, learn the people, build relationships, and get it acclimatized to us. Now, at 90 days, love to see your plan. But many people will come in and want to prove their worth. And they do damage. One, because they have good subject matter expertise, but they don't have enough context actually to make the right decisions. And so coming up with a great plan and having them understand what you need, and not letting them do anything major for 90 days at least. I'm
Yeah,
sure you have lots more you'll add in there, Brad. Yeah.
yeah, well, hopefully. Yeah, I'm so passionate about this. This is what I'm writing a book about at the moment, my second book. I've done a survey of 1,100 CEOs and hiring managers around the world, currently work in progress. But the data is compelling around the value of onboarding, okay? So most companies spend about 7 days is about the average, and then it drops off
Crazy.
really, really quickly. There's a percentage, I'm thinking like 18% or something like that, maybe 20% that have 1 day onboarding. The majority have really not a lot more than 7 days. But most of the value comes at 90 days. There's a really strong, compelling case around having a 90-day onboarding. And that is as simple as what is the manager's expectations in the first week, in the first month, in the first 2 months, in the first 3 months, and documenting that and then holding them accountable to achieve those things. So the process that I've built through that book, I've used with several CEOs, and it creates outstanding results in that it gets people to be more productive quicker. It creates a tighter relationship with the manager and the new hire. But thirdly, and most importantly, it exits people really quickly who are the wrong fit. And that's a key part of onboarding. Getting rid of
Absolutely.
the
And how does it exit people? What is it that helps to exit those people?
So to role play, and you're Bob. So Bob, in the first 30 days, these are all of the things that you've got to achieve. If you don't do these, we're going to extend your probation period. Okay. So you're setting the expectations. And what you're doing is if Bob's the right fit, Bob is going to immediately endeavor to get those things done, or at least get a good percentage of those things done. If Bob isn't the right fit, we're going to get to the end of the first month, and through the process, there's not going to be much done at all. And so
he's going to have forgot his homework. He's going to fail the exam. Excellent.
It shines a spotlight onto the person's non-conformity. And the kind of things that we put is like, we want you to visit 10 customer sites. You know, that I think you can't get to month 2 unless you've visited 10 customer sites. So those types of things, very
you
practical.
Set it up as like a check, like a stage gate.
Yep.
Don't pass go until you can say yes to these in 30 days. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. So that's the
premise.
The
right person will do it, and the wrong person will have a bunch of excuses.
Yeah. So coming back to this, without us falling into the onboarding book, that's really them understanding your expectations as a manager, right? This is about hiring new people to get the right person. Like, you've got to onboard well. Don't spend 7 days. Onboarding is not a checklist. Okay. That's a checklist. Like, do
they have a computer? Do they have an email? Yeah.
That's all rubbish, right? That's just compliance.
I wouldn't say it's rubbish, because some companies fail on that. Right? Like companies, but that's not the make or break. That makes or breaks their experience. It doesn't make or break their performance. I don't want to, I'm with you. It's some companies have a hard time with those things, and they fall down there too.
Yeah, and some people struggle to get out of bed in the morning, right? Like you know, we're aiming for great here. Let's be fair.
Okay.
So if you want to get the right people on the bus, you've got to, when you hire new people, you've got to onboard them really, really well. And that definition is they've got to understand their direct reporting managers' expectations to the point
Yeah.
it's not possible for them to misunderstand.
I love that. And the biggest thing from that, we'll still agree that we got to make sure someone makes sure that they get them a computer and all that other stuff set up
Of
right. And
course.
that's and if your system is sucks at that, make sure you do. But what you're really saying is it's that month one stage gates. And that is a simple, brilliant tool to help to guide the manager and the person. It's basically, we do quarterly goals for people. It's a month's goal, because at 30 days, if that stuff's not done, that's a great indicator.
No, there's 4 stage gates: week 1, month 2, month 3. So the
Yeah.
research that I've done pretty much in every country around the world, there's a couple of anomalies, but most countries around the world, at 90 days, employment law says that before 90 days, you can fire
Yeah.
someone without real repercussion. Now, do your own research
Yes.
on this, because we go all around the world, right? But it's a generally accepted rule
Yep.
that it's a probationary period. So that's why I've structured into those 4. This is what you've got to do to go from stage 1 to stage 2, which is week 1 to month 1, right? You've got to tick all of these boxes. You've got to get through.
Yep.
So let's
Awesome.
move on to number 6, fertilize and prune. We're not heading back to basket weaving for those of you who are still with us. No, fertilize and prune. Celebrate the wins and fix the mistakes and get the wrong people off the bus. Tell us about this, Kevin.
It's real simple, and this is where a lot of people fall down. Let's just say that you're at month 2 and it ain't looking good, or you're at the end of the probationary period and you're like, I think we made a mistake. The key is to call it then, if not before. Now, you might extend it by a month. You may choose to, whatever, that's your choice. But the point of it is, very quickly, if you made a mistake, cut your losses, just like pruning the branches on a rose bush. If you don't prune it, the bush gets out of control and you got a mess on your hands. So if it's excellent, pour more fertilizer on it. Give them more responsibilities, give them positive feedback, let them continue on their way, coach, train, mentor, support. But if not, 30-day extension, the next stage gate of things they have to accomplish at the end of that 30 days. And if not, part ways now. Because if you don't, 1, you're going to undermine your culture by letting these people in. But 2, it is actually dangerous, because then they start bonding into the company. And sometimes you'll get people who are sweet, wonderful people, and they're making friends, and they're as likable as your friend's puppy dog that they just got yesterday. They're wonderful and like really good people, but they're in the wrong company or in the wrong job. And when you let those people go after 6 months or 9 months, it's problematic. They've made new best friends, they're loved, and it's really hard on the culture, right? Especially when they're bonded. At 30 days, at 90 days, it's hard. At 9 months, it's very, very hard. Now, if they're toxic people, there will always be a relief when they leave, but they do a lot of damage in between. So it's having a methodology, and and that's why ideally at the end of that 90 days, there should be a pre-planned meeting to review how are you doing and what happens now. And the feedback obviously has happened at 30 days and 60 days and 90 days. But it's really critical to get the wrong people and make that choice, and then go back and reflect on, okay, where did we miss in our process? Where did we go wrong? Were we not clear enough on what the role required? Did we miss something in our interview process? And so that you can learn for next time.
Many shrubs, to use the garden, to draw a little bit more on the gardening analogy, many shrubs actually do a lot better when they're pruned. So they actually need to be pruned to stay healthy.
Right, to keep the resources going to the core of the shrub and not on these long branches and getting all spindly. Yes.
Yeah. So if you watch some gardening shows, Some people get shocked at just how hard the gardeners will prune some of these shrubs. They'll cut them right back. And if you've ever seen pruned roses, it's just like 3 sticks kind of coming out of the ground. And then they come back and they bloom. So yeah, so prune is an interesting one in that, we've got to maintain. Sometimes we're just we've got a C player here and we're preventing them from being an A player somewhere else because we don't
Yeah.
have the courage to take that action as leaders.
And we're preventing them from going home at the end of the day and feeling good about themselves.
Yeah.
I don't care who it is. Unfortunately, many people need their paychecks. So, the idea of you've just got a job and you're getting this thing called a paycheck to pay this thing called your bills and take care of this thing called your family. And by quitting a job, you give up that paycheck. Now, some people can take that leap of faith knowing they'll get something else, but some people don't. And so
Most
people
people
will
don't.
stay in, I know, and most people will stay in the wrong job when they shouldn't. So interestingly, with the CEO in the last few weeks, we've got a bit of an issue with some toxic people in their culture, which is being dealt with. But there's a bunch of people who are kind of complaining about it. And the CEO had to talk with people. It's like, hey, you need to call out the bad behavior. And if it's you that is having the bad behavior, you need to listen and change it. Now, the other thing they said is, and if you're not happy here, talk to your manager. Find a way that you can really get your job love back and enjoy it. And if you can't, you should leave. We want people who want to be here and are happy here and can thrive here. And they said, I want all of you to do that. But if you can't, you need to move on. And the truth of it is that's great to suggest that. And usually we are the one who needs to make the choice. It's best if they do. But someone's got to deal with that sometimes, and it's very hard. And for managers who are compassionate don't want people to be without a job or without an income. So it's a critical point, and it separates the men from the boys and the women from the girls, right? It separates the adult from the children. It is the hardest thing to do, but yet you have a responsibility to your company and to the people who are floundering to help them find something better. By the way, one of my favorite things is if you can even think of, man, this person would be great at XYZ role, and if you don't even have it, you can have a conversation with them and give them time. You're suited to do this. Maybe you should talk to this company. It's like help them find something better because it's not a secret.
All right. So some really good discussions through today. I think that, I think it's something we're both passionate about, but it's really in terms of building an enduring great company, as Jim Collins said, like this is really step number one. You got to get this right first before you do anything else. So quickly reviewing those things. Number one, if you want to get the right people on the bus, step one, number one, you've got to commit to actually wanting to do it, not having an okay business, but if you want to have a great business, if you want to have an enduring great business, you've got to commit to it. It's going to be difficult, but the rewards will be there. Then number two, capture and communicate what performance looks like, what behavioral expectations, what cultural expectations, and what performance KPIs look like to the team, and when you're meeting and not meeting the expectations. Number three, give feedback and second, third chances. Enter people into performance management who aren't right, and with the absolute hope that they will get better. That's what we want them to do, get better, not to exit them. Then number four, when you have created vacancies because you've exited people from the bus, screen really, really well. We spoke about the top grading methodology there. Then when you've hired, move to onboard. And we spoke extensively today about onboarding and in trying to aim for 90-day understanding of the new hire into the role and your expectations. And then number six, of course, fertilize and prune, maintain the good people on the bus. What a good chat we've had today. So let's. Good.
And we started with basket weaving and we ended with pruning. And at the end of the day, all these metaphors you want. But the point of it is that this is important stuff and it makes a notable difference. So, hey, thanks for listening. This has been the Growth Whisperers podcast. I'm Kevin Lawrence. This is my co-host here, Brad Giles. And to get Brad or connect with him, evolutionpartners.com.au. And to reach me, lawrenceandco.com. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Have an awesome week.